the meantime, to show you the fleeting nature of polls, and I know what you're saying, then Neil, why did you lead with one? Well, because it's the latest one we've got. But the other reason is that they are snapshots in time. And how many times have I said once snapped their shot? And who knows that better than Herman Cain, who 4 years ago at this time was the leading candidate, and then he wasn't. Herman, you talked a lot since then about what happened and what you let transpire and didn't fight back soon enough to address the slippage. But how would you advise some of these early phenoms, that Dr. Carson comes to mind, even a Marco Rubio, Donald Trump certainly, about staying high in those polls?
One of the things that I would have done differently, Neil, is that I would have had a crisis management team on standby. Because when you get hit with a crisis that comes out of nowhere, you need to have a team outside of your campaign to evaluate and assess how you ought to handle it rather than the people that are running your campaign. Remember, running in a presidential campaign is like drinking from a fire hydrant, and you want to try to make sure you don't get your lips blown off. Have an outside crisis management team, because when I say they, the opposition, they're going to continue to try to find something to throw the leading candidates off kilter. Have that crisis management team.
All right, now, if Marco Rubio, you came into this race knowing that people were, sort of sniffing around your personal finances and your debts and your bills. They were asking about, and he had addressed prior how he handled his expenses, business and otherwise, and mixed that with personal when he was Speaker of the House in Florida. And he had put it to rest, but he knew, as you do with some incidents that you dealt with, that they would rear their ugly heads again. When you say have an attack team or a response team for a quick response, Rubio's has been no there, and I've dismissed it. And when it came to the voting thing that he expected to be challenged by Governor Bush on, to say that, look, you supported candidates who had worse voting records than I did. Is that enough? Or if there's something that sticks and it doesn't go away, do you have to have an option too?
That isn't enough to stick. There is no there. And if there is something there, it's easily corrected. When the Democrats have someone who's leading in the polls that is a proven liar, and we're going to worry about somebody who may have made a credit card mistake? No, Neil. This is the Republican opposition trying to go after someone who's surging in the polls, who happens to be Marco Rubio. I don't think he needs to worry about it. If there is something there, it's easily corrected. I wouldn't get distracted by that red herring that they're trying to float.
You know, I was thinking of you, Herman. I know the criticism that you got when you were emerging 4 years ago. President Obama, at that time looking at re-election, had dismissed your candidacy as a sort of a fluke, a whim. He was kind of, and is kind of, saying the same about the likes of Ben Carson and Donald Trump. So a lot of this is sounding familiar. And yes. What happens to outside-the-box candidates, and you were certainly among them, is that we have our romance, our dalliance, and then we get down to business and we end up going conventional. Do you think this time it will be the same thing, or what?
I don't believe we're going to go conventional this time, because the outside candidates have sustained being in the leadership for such a long period of time. And when President Obama starts to call these candidates as being part of silly season, that shows just how much President Obama, is out of touch with the American people. I don't think they're going to go away. And quite frankly, personally, I'm glad to see that the outside candidates and the surging candidates are the ones that are rising in the polls, because I think it makes a statement about what the American people are feeling. They are sick and tired of being sick and tired of Washington not fixing things, and outsiders, is what people are saying, are the ones capable of making that happen.
I like that, sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yes, they are.
You know, when I look at the race and the making up now, and Dr. Ben Carson, largely Donald Trump has not known how to respond to him, the fellow outsider, because he is a nice, congenial guy. But what you hear from Trump when it comes to Dr. Carson is that, nice guy, brilliant doctor, hasn't created a job, that line where he said maybe save a nurse or two. he just wants you to think, yes, have you in your mind thinking maybe a Surgeon General, maybe another capacity, not as President of the United States. Does that kind of stuff work? Because you dealt with variations of the same thing. Pretty good businessman, made a fortune in a business where it's tough to do, stayed thin for 20 years in fast food, which, by the way, I would have run with if I were you. But you know, they try to dismiss your talents as not suited for the job you're seeking.
The reason that they, meaning some in the media, Neil, they do that is because they cherry pick those sound bites to try and turn people off to a particular candidate. I had the opportunity to hear Donald Trump give an entire speech when he was here in the Atlanta area, along with some people who weren't necessarily Donald Trump fans. After that speech, they said to me, we heard some things listening to the whole speech that you never hear in the sound bites.
Right.
So when you hear him attacking Carson based upon, you know, this little sound bite and this little sound bite, I don't think it's going to work, because I believe that people are waking up to the fact that they're being spoon-fed some of the perception that they want the public to take. That's why Carson has been gradually moving up in the polls, and Donald Trump has been staying steady near the top of the polls.
Yeah, neither are giving up much ground here. And I think a lot of it, even different guys, but very comfortable in their own skin, who they are. Very different people, but comfortable in who they are, right?
Yes. And I think that is a good thing. And it gets back to what I said earlier about President Obama is out of touch with the mood and the attitude of the American people. The reason that the top tier, which happens to be Donald Trump, Ben Carson, or Ben Carson, Donald Trump, doesn't matter. They're leading the whole rest of the field. The American people and the mood, and I hear it every day on my radio show, is that they are looking for outsiders because they believe that outsiders, not establishment candidates, are our best hope in order to truly change things. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah, well, they obviously have some staying power, to your point. Herman, always good seeing you. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Neil.